I would bomb the shit out of him.
I am doing another Sargon video. I know what some of you are saying, my regulars. You're saying, boy, this guy does Sargon videos like Thunderfoot does Anita Sarkeesian videos. And I will concede you are right. However, he has a large audience. People tend to watch my videos when I do videos on him. And he's a great foil for me. He's a really dumb Trump supporter. And I really had to go back to this video because I had to point out some blatant hypocrisy and contradictions. I went back to, it's called A Vote for Hillary is a Vote for War. And it's really absurd considering the fact that, really, I could see Trump starting a war way before Hillary does. I don't hate Sargon. I don't think he's inherently offensive either. He wants to be perceived as offensive. But what does get on my nerves is how dumb his fans are. How fawning they are. He could retweet misspelling, say all sorts of dumb things, talk off topic, whatever, and these lemming little morons retweet his comments and like them all over the place. And I don't understand it, why guys like him and Armor Skeptic, they have this cult of personality where these people just, they could say anything, and these other people will mindlessly follow what they are saying and just like everything they do. I don't understand it, but people are inherently followers. They don't realize that they are, but they cave in to persuasive authority. Social science has shown this time and time again, like the Milgram experiment and the work of Albert Bandura as well.
Initial research and observational learning centered on the social modeling of aggression. In our experiment, preschool children observed an adult model beat up an inflated boba doll in novel ways. She pummeled it with a mallet, flung it in the air, kicked it repeatedly, and threw it down and beat it. And these novel acts were embellished with hostile remarks. The children were then left in the playroom that had a variety of toys. Now, the children who had observed the aggressive modeling adopted much of it. They even invented new ways for attacking the doll. Children who had not observed the adult model were less aggressive and never hit the boba doll in the novel ways that were modeled. The children who had been exposed to the aggressive modeling showed an increased attraction to guns.
Hillary Clinton is and always has been a warmonger. She has never been shy about supporting foreign wars, such as in Iraq, but she has also been instrumental in certain invasions and takes credit for these things even today. Take for example Libya and the key role that Hillary played in overthrowing Gaddafi.
Get a kick out of it that conservatives like Sargon criticize Hillary for getting Gaddafi. Ronald Reagan went after Gaddafi for years. He would have sold his soul to the devil to catch Gaddafi. If anyone besides Hillary Clinton would have gotten Gaddafi, if George Bush, number 1 or 2, would have gotten Gaddafi, they would have been worshipped as a hero on the right. So it's pure hypocrisy when they criticize Hillary Clinton for doing it.
7 o'clock this evening, Eastern Time, air and naval forces of the United States launched a series of strikes against the headquarters, terrorist facilities, and military assets that support Muammar Gaddafi's subversive activities. Colonel Gaddafi is not only an enemy of the United States. His record of subversion and aggression against the neighboring states in Africa is well documented and well known. He has ordered the murder of fellow Libyans in countless countries. He has sanctioned acts of terror in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, as well as the Western Hemisphere.
She seems to want the destabilization of the Middle East, and she seems to want it in order to fight Russia. In fact, she seems to want a hot war with Russia, instead of the proxy war that the US is currently fighting. And I say this because she has been repeatedly calling for a no-fly zone over Syria.
So when I was Secretary of State, advocated, and I advocate today, a no-fly zone and safe zones. We need some leverage with the Russians because they're not going to come to the negotiating table for a diplomatic resolution unless there is some leverage over them.
And I don't mean to sound callous when I say this, but implementing a no-fly zone over Aleppo means war with Russia.
I don't really know what's up with him saying hot war or whatever it is. He's trying to make it sound like it's worse than the Cold War. I mean, and honestly, a no-fly zone over Syria is going to result in a war with Russia? I mean, that's ahistorical at best. And I mean, he has some good sources to back up what he's saying, but I don't trust him. Because you know what? Relations between the United States and Russia were way worse in the past, and we didn't go to war. There were grain embargoes on Russia. There have been many embargoes. There's an embargo now that I don't necessarily support. It's really complicated. And I don't really, do I need to say it again? But I've said it time and time again. I don't necessarily like Hillary Clinton's foreign policy. In fact, I agree with him on a lot of things, but I think Trump is worse. And the truth of the matter is that during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Soviet Union had nuclear missiles pointed at us from Cuba. They don't talk about this as much, but we had missiles pointed at Russia, nuclear missiles, Jupiter, from Turkey. We had missiles pointed at them, nuclear missiles, and we decided that, that's not going to work. So I think that, we're not going to go to a war with Russia. And the strange thing about all this is that, Trump is a blank slate. He has no foreign policy experience. So Sargon and other people just get to write whatever they want on the Trump and say that, oh, he's going to be this way. But the truth of the matter is, I guarantee you, within a couple of years, Sargon's going to look like an idiot, because Trump is going to start a war. It's probably going to be with Iran.
He tried to overthrow Cuba's new communist government. That failed attempt was known as the Bay of Pigs, and it convinced Cuba to seek help from the USSR. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev was happy to comply by secretly deploying nuclear missiles to Cuba, not only to protect the island, but to counteract the threat from U.S. missiles in Italy and Turkey. By the time U.S. intelligence discovered the plan, the materials to create the missiles were all...
First of all, you don't want to say take everything off the table.
No, just
you're
nuclear.
a bad negotiator if you do
Just
that.
nuclear.
Look, nuclear should be off the table. But would there be a time when it could be used? Possibly.
Okay, can you tell the Middle East we're not using a nuclear weapon
I would
on anybody?
never say that. I would never take any of my cards off the table.
How about Europe? We won't use it in Europe.
I'm not going to take it off the table.
You might use it in Europe?
No.
Trump is a Gracchus, and he is opposing the continual downward spiral of a republic into a principate.
So that clip is from another video, but I really had to touch on this. Sargon is one of the people, and he's been beating this drum, saying that Donald Trump is a Gracchus, that he's a man of the people, that he's a social reformer, that he's going to drain the swamp. And Sargon was proven to be an idiot when Donald Trump started filling his cabinet with swamp creatures, swamp things recently. Donald Trump is not a populist. He is not one of the everyday people. He's an elitist. He was born into money. He has a lot of money. He's never done a day's dishes in his life. He probably doesn't even... He's probably never even washed his own clothes. He doesn't even drive. He has a chauffeur. He is not a man of the people. He does not know what it's like to be one of the people. At least with Clinton and Obama, they had to struggle a little bit. They were from lower middle class or middle class backgrounds. Whereas Trump, he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He is not a man of the people. It's absurd to say he is.
Last time we counted, there were 5 Goldman Sachs alum joining the new White House. Senior strategist in the White House, Goldman Sachs. Nominee for Treasury Secretary, Goldman Sachs. Head of the National Economic Council, the president of Goldman Sachs. Head of the SEC, which is the top cop that polices Wall Street. He is a former lawyer for Goldman Sachs. After those 4, the Trump administration created a new advisor job at the White House for another partner at Goldman Sachs. That brings us to 5 Goldman Sachs hires for the new populist looking out for the little guy White House. But then, remarkably enough, they found another one. Another Goldman Sachs guy will now be taking over the White House Office of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs.
And one more thing in the end here. I was arguing with one of Sargon's followers, and he said in a tweet that the left is incapable of rational discourse. Yes, because conservatives, the right, are are such rational people. I mean, after all, I remember when Glenn Beck was talking about how the United States was going to crumble in 2014 and Obama was going to declare martial law and shut down all the banks and lock God-fearing Christians in FEMA camps. Yeah, talk to Joe Watson about that. He believes in FEMA camps too. Thank you for watching. Again, subscribe, vote, and comment. Have a good one.
At our first scenario, where American cities were subjected to a coordinated two-day attack, all the U.S. banks have been nationalized. Unemployment is about between 12 and 20%. The real estate market has collapsed. Unions control most of the business, and America's credit rating has been downgraded.
You're one of the spookiest